Operation 85.
Heads up, Operation 85.
The national program called Operation 85 helps link families to crew members killed.
Joining me now,
Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline.
Operation 85.
So, Kevin, you are not a professional genealogist. You're not a historian. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a small businessman. You're also a musician. I found that interesting. You tickled the ivories at a Trump property once, which I kind of like.
And now, here's the host of the Sand Table, Kevin Kline.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world today. My name is Kevin Kline, Executive Director of Operation 85. Also a grandnephew, family member of a U.S.S. Arizona sailor killed aboard the Arizona December 7th, 1941, and is still missing. And I'm also now the host of the Sand Table. What is the Sand Table? The Sand Table is now an option and a platform, great opportunity for us to continue to bring information and updates to family members, to supporters about the U.S.S. Arizona, about Operation 85, and about our family's mission to compel the DPAA and the Department of Defense to do their job and identify the unknowns from the U.S.S. Arizona. Real quick, today we have I'm very excited about our guest today, but real quick, we want to bring up our numbers from the project so far. These were updated from yesterday. I don't want to spend too much time on the numbers, but I just want to quickly let everybody know where we are. If you look at that red number right in the middle, 274 represents the amount reported by the Navy and the DPAA and the Marines in the lab as fully completed. These are 274 crew members that are fully represented by DNA at the lab. Now, that number was reported in January of 2024, so that was a little while ago. We're hoping to get the new numbers here with end of February, beginning of March numbers, and we're hoping that number is huge. If you look at the number below it, the 407, that represents the amount of family members we have sent in with the correct DNA, whether it be Y or mtDNA that the lab needs to represent 407 crew members. So family members, if you still have that kit sitting on your kitchen table or on your dining room or on a shelf somewhere, please, it only takes a few minutes. It's free to do. Everything's paid for. Swab that cheek, get that kit in. We today, if everyone had their kits in, we would be at that 407, and we need 643 to compel our U.S. government to begin this project. So please, very quickly, do everything you can to get that number, get those kits in so we can get that number up. But we will do a separate show with John Hardy, our researcher, when we get those new numbers from the U.S. Navy. Also, we want to do some real business here and thank our sponsor of the show, List with Elizabeth. List with Elizabeth doesn't only sponsor the show, they have sponsored the entire Operation 85 project. We're not funded by the U.S. government or the taxpayer. I personally have no interest in asking any family members of the Arizona for money. I've decided to do this on my own. That is my wife, Elizabeth, up there, and her company, List with Elizabeth. And she has graciously allowed me to take almost an entire year off of the business to run Operation 85. And I'm very grateful that we're in a position to be able to fund Operation 85. But what is List with Elizabeth? Let me tell you. List with Elizabeth is a national real estate brand that can connect you with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. If you are buying or selling a home anywhere, Texas, Florida, Chicago, Miami, wherever the heck you are in the good old USA, if you are selling or buying a home, connect with Elizabeth. I didn't know this, but apparently these third-party companies like Zillow and Realtor.com, when you click on there and you're interested in a home, they charge these agents hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars for your name and your email and your phone number. List with Elizabeth does not charge for your information. List with Elizabeth does not sell your information. They will connect you with a great agent. These are agents that she has worked with personally. Her team has worked with. They know all around. They have a national agency network, and they can connect you to buy or sell a home. So if you're Doing that, please help support us. 703-829-LIST. Give Elizabeth a call or visit her online at listwithelizabeth.com. Okay, now the fun part. Today's show is something I've really been wanting to discuss for quite some time. And our guest today is someone I think everyone will find her story extremely unique. Sheri Spomer is from the great state of Arizona. And not only is she a U.S.S. Arizona family member, related to someone that is missing, like myself and many others. Her unique story is she's also related to a family or to a crew member from the U.S.S. Oklahoma. And as most of us know, the U.S.S. Oklahoma had a project done where they also had commingled graves in the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. And those sat for almost 75 years as unknown. And the DPAA began that project to identify those. And Sheri and her family got to go through that project and had a successful identification of their family member. So she is unique in the fact that not only is she going through the Arizona project with us, she's already gone through the Oklahoma project before, and she can actually give us some really, really great insight. So please welcome to the show my good friend Sheri. How you doing there?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you?
I'm great. And you know, I got to tell you, this is the first time we've actually seen each other or spoken face to face. You've been kind of one of the first family members that, you know, I was connected with over a year ago when I had this crazy idea that we were going to all band together as family members and do this project. And you were one of the ones that kind of pushed me to say, let's do it. It can be done. But through that, and although you've always been supportive, and I also want to thank you for all the press that you've done on the West Coast. You have always been really accessible to all the press. Every time I call up and say, I need someone different than me, another perspective, you've always been great at stepping up to the plate. We did the Washington Post feature article together. So I got my uncle on the cover and you got your two family members on the cover of that one. So I really also want to thank you for not only supporting me and being kind of a rock and kind of helping me along this path, but really helping me with all the press and stuff that you're doing. But this is the first time we've had an opportunity to meet face to face. I don't know why my thumb did that, but that's okay. So welcome to the show, Sheri. If we can, tell me a little bit about you first and your story. And also let's talk a little bit about Robert and Gerald, if you can kind of give us a backstory on them.
Sure. So you said I'm from the great state of Arizona. That's where I live now. I'm actually from Nebraska, from a small town in Nebraska, about 3,000 people. And so that is home to me. And that is where both Robert and Gerald Clayton grew up. They were cousins. Gerald was my grandfather cousin. So these boys grew up together in this small town. They were the same age. They were both in sports and, you know, just growing up together as young boys do. The summer before their senior year, Robert's family actually moved to California, to Long Beach. And so the boys were separated for their senior year, but they had both talked about joining the Navy together. And we had found letters that they had written to each other while he was in California, talking about enlisting in the Navy. And so they knew that that was their plan, was to do that. And so, then Jerry was on the Oklahoma and Robert ended up on the Arizona.
Okay, so you mentioned the Oklahoma, and obviously at the beginning I mentioned the fact that the U.S.S. Oklahoma project had started, I think, back in 2015, maybe earlier than that. Tell us when was the first time? Well, first off, let me ask: did you know about unknowns at the Punch Bowl? Did you or your family know unknowns about the Oklahoma or the Arizona? And secondly, tell me how you originally found out about the Oklahoma project. Let's start there.
Okay, so I did know about the unknowns for the Oklahoma. I had actually lived in Hawaii in the mid 90s, and so visited the U.S.S. Arizona Memorial many times, knowing that we had a family member that had died on that ship. And then we always, when people would come to visit, family would come over, we always went out to the Punch Bowl Cemetery to pay our respects there. And I knew about, and I had seen the graves of the Oklahoma unknowns. it wasn't until, it was actually 2011 when I was first contacted by the Navy contract genealogist, telling us about the project, and that they were looking for family members. So it was 2011 that we first found out that they were considering disinterring these remains and needing DNA. 12 years ago, we got started on this journey with understanding the DNA technology and what could happen with that, the possibilities of that.
Got you. So you were notified by a genealogist. When you were notified, how long? What were you exactly told? Was there a potential identification there, or is it just the beginning? Like, what were you originally told, and then what was the timeline from the time that you were originally connected with the genealogist to when the Navy says, "Hey, guess what? We might have a match." Like, what was that timeline and story like?
Yeah, so the 2011 was the initial meeting where she said, or the initial contact where they were looking for family members to submit the DNA. At that time, we were told that the project was moving forward, that they would be disinterring the remains. They had already disinterred some and found that there were far more remains buried in a casket than what they had originally thought, which is what prompted the entire project to move forward. And I believe it was 2015 when they disinterred the remaining unknown graves there. It was September of 2018 been identified. And then that
you froze for a second. Say that again. September of 2018. Okay.
So once we got that notification, then they moved forward with asking us what the family wanted to do, and they're going forward with that then.
How many family members are the Claytons strong, and who was involved? How many people did you have that had to give DNA in your family?
So there were two that gave DNA. Gerald had a sister. My great aunt was still alive at the time. She was 85, and her son. They both submitted DNA. She then passed away, just as you've said how important it is to get family in there. She passed away within a year of us being notified initially that they were moving forward. So, but in addition to finding someone to submit DNA, they also needed the oldest living descendant to be, I don't know the official word for it, but she needed to be the official contact for the family, and that was my aunt.
The official next of kin, because someone had to make a decision. I can imagine, maybe not your family, but I can imagine, we've spoken to a lot. There are, with every family, sometimes disputes, and I guess the Navy has to figure out who they're going to make the main point of contact as the decision maker, I would assume, right?
Yeah. And that's what it was. And it is tough. Not all my family was on board with what was happening. Fortunately, though, it didn't stop. And so once they identified him, then the family was able to agree on plans. And when I say family, it was my dad, his brother and sisters, and his cousins. That generation, because they were the next generation in line, they were the ones that were able to talk about it and make the decisions. Me as the next generation down, I'm just kind of the spokesperson, but I'm not a decision maker for any of them in this case.
And COX Robert Roland Clayton, he was eventually brought home and buried, I believe, July 5th, 2019. Where was home? Where was he buried at?
So that's in Central City, Nebraska. And it was actually Gerald Clayton.
I'm sorry. Gerald Clayton.
Yes,
Robert was from the Arizona. So where was Gerald buried at?
Gerald was buried in Central City. It was July 5th, 2019. And again, small town. We do a big 4th of July celebration every year and parade and all of that. They actually named the celebration Coming Home in his honor. And I get goosebumps even now thinking about it with flags, and it was an incredible experience to be.
I can imagine that was a pretty patriotic Independence Day for your family and your town too. It's not just a family thing when something like this happens. It kind of everybody can be patriotic and bring out their red, white, and blue and support that. And we found that Sheri as well. just not family members being very supportive of this, but just anyone that just sees the importance of bringing home all Americans and not leaving them in an unknown grave. So that's an awesome story. So as you know, the same plan for our USS Arizona unknowns was never on the table. And that was frustrating to me when I found out and started to inquire that they felt the project of finding, locating family members of 1,072 missing, and now potentially even looking for family members of the 105 that were identified. The Navy and the Department of Defense, they did a study in March of 2022 where they estimated this would cost, I believe, $3 million, take 10 years, and I think 12,600 man hours just to just to find the family members. And I just kind of felt like no cost was too big and this was too big of important, and I kind of called their bluff. Let me tell you, it does not take that much money. It's not going to take that much time, and it's not going to take that many hours to do it. Trust me, I've had volunteers working their butts off. Sheri, you, especially at the beginning, you were very helpful with helping me find family at the beginning, especially until we got that team in place that could kind of did its own thing. But there was no plan in place for the USS Arizona unknowns. Sheri, I'm going to play a video here of the DPAA director, Kelly McKeag, from 2021, February of 2021. Now, this is before Operation 85 was ever heard, before Kevin Kline started the fight, before you and I and all these family members banded together. Let's hear a question from a family member to the director of the DPA. Again, this is February 2021.
The next question is from Anne via our website, and her question is, when will the U.S.S. Arizona unknowns finally get disinterred from the punch bowl?
So I believe there are 94 unknowns that are buried as unknowns at the Arizona, that are buried as unknowns from the Arizona at the National Cemetery there. We have had preliminary discussions with the Navy, and one of the proposals that we have notionally talked about is to disinter all of them, not for the purpose of identification, but to entomb them in the hull of the Arizona along with their shipmates. It's something that, again, we could never take on the process of disinterring the 94 from the National Cemetery, only because it would cause us to have to get family reference samples for I think it's 1,800. I'm not sure about the final number, but all the sailors and Marines that are entombed in the Arizona itself, we would have to go and get family reference samples, again, to compare against the 94. So it's not a proposition that makes pragmatic sense, but more importantly, it's not one that the United States Navy is open to, only because the Arizona, the memorial itself, is their final resting place. So our notional plan, again, was to disinter the 94, in which to entomb them all together and to achieve the fullest possible accounting of the entire USS Arizona crew.
Sheri, your reaction to that?
Yeah. It's disappointing to hear him say that it could never be done. They knew it could be done. I mean, we all get the magnitude of it, that there is such a small percentage of unknowns compared to the total number lost on the USS Arizona. But to say that it can never be done, it isn't accurate. Obviously, with enough time and money, anything could be done.
The proposal to just disinter, put them in a box, obviously very respectfully, and then reinter them in the hull. I could see if they felt the project was completely undoable, that might be a way to resolve them. But I wanted to bring something up, and I'm sure you knew this with the Oklahoma project. When they disinterred the Oklahoma guys, they found a USS Arizona crew member inside the grave that said Oklahoma. And if they were to potentially disinter these graves from the unknown of the Arizona and not identify them, there very well could be Oklahoma guys in there, California. I mean, anyone could be mixed in there.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that proposal to disinter them all and just put them into the hull of the ship?
Yeah, I mean, knowing what we know now, of course, I don't think that that would be the correct thing to do. Had they not have done the Oklahoma project and the other projects that they've done that have been successful, I think everyone probably would have been okay with that, just disinterring them and respectfully reburying them or entombing them in the ship again. But yeah, there's going to be most likely men that were not on that ship that they're going to identify during this process.
There very well could be Oklahoma guys in our Arizona graves right now.
Right.
It's funny, they say that they compartmentalize these projects through as ships, meaning if we've given our DNA for the U.S.S. Arizona project, it's compartmentalized in a way that is not used for anything else. And that disappoints me knowing what I know now. And I'd like your reaction on this, because it really should be compartmentalized as a Pearl Harbor casualty project, where they should be matching our DNA to all the unknown remains they have, because my uncle could have been anywhere. It was Sunday morning. They had masses and religious ceremonies on different ships, and they were allowed to go onto those different ships for those ceremonies. We have no idea where anybody was, and to just say, well, they were assigned to the Arizona, so that's what, that's where we're going to put them. And also they were near the Arizona, so we're going to call this guy in Arizona. I mean, these remains, I don't want to get too gruesome here, but these remains were found the next day, a couple days later. They're not full remains. They were floating in the water around the ships. They were floating up on the shore. There's no telling where anyone could be or who anyone is. So I'm very surprised that they haven't made a decision to compartmentalize the entire project as one Pearl Harbor project and identify our DNA that we're giving with all the remains, because we might find our family member was somewhere else unexpectedly that day or during the chaos of that day.
Right. And it could be that that's something that in the future they will do. I don't know for sure. I think that there's a big block when it comes to DNA and privacy. And I think they want to respect everyone's privacy and keep it as tight as they can. But I think they should give us a choice then. If those of us that have submitted DNA, if we are willing to put it into a larger project, not just a ship specific project, then I think that should be our choice.
Agreed. And, family members of the U.S.S. Arizona have really never been asked or given a choice or anything for the last 75 years, because we were never kind of kept together. One of the things about the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association is they were really tight, and they kept that story going of the survivors for so many years. But those that were killed on during the attack on Pearl Harbor, they were not banded together. They were not, kept informed, and that's why we've lost touch with them after so many years. And that's why, Operation 85 and us family members are making, basically picking up the pieces where that timeline or that gap had left off. Sheri, I'm going to play you another video. And this is from the Phoenix, Arizona family member DPAA update, which was just this past Saturday in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And a family member from the U.S.S. Arizona, we had 3 families there. We had a bunch of people online watching. One of the family members stood up and basically asked the same question 2 years later. And let's watch that video and get your reaction on that.
Good afternoon. I really appreciate the seminar and all your people's work. And definitely tell that you're committed to making this happen. My question comes from the U.S.S. Arizona. You mentioned earlier that you had great results from the U.S.S. Oklahoma. When is the disinterment of the Arizona punch bowl unknowns going to happen?
So with the U.S.S. Arizona, that's a different problem set than the U.S.S. Oklahoma. You look like you're probably very familiar with the program, so I'll address the rest of the group. The issue with the U.S.S. Oklahoma is that although there are remains that are interred at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, there are also, in addition to getting the FRS, which I know there's Operation 85 that's working with the families to get the FRS in order to get authorization to disinter. The challenge is it's not just the family members related to those remains that are buried at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. We have to go back and get all of the resolved case remains as well in order to be able to make an identification, because we certainly would not want to disinter, I think it's 388 or whatever the number is, from the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific and then not be able to make an identification. So we know that there are efforts, and we applaud the families for, and that's the other reason why we have these family updates, so that you all can come together and help each other. And with the U.S.S. Arizona families, they have come together and they are working to help get the family reference sample needed to conduct the disinterments for that loss, that American loss. So it's a different problem set. As if you've ever been to Hawaii, U.S.S. Arizona is also a monument. And so, you know, we'll see what the future holds.
How did we come up with a 60% FRS before you'll start to disinter?
No. So, yeah, she was.
All right, Sheri, before we go into that next question there, let's just tackle the first one. And that was not the DPAA director. I believe that was the deputy director. And I apologize, I don't know her name off the top of my head. Your first reaction to I don't know, what, same question, different answer?
Yeah, I mean, different, worded in a different way. There's still the hesitancy there. At least they're acknowledging the work that you've done with this, and the families kind of banding together to try and get the ball rolling with it. But there's still that hesitancy with them to move forward, although it sounds definitely better than the response from 2 years ago. Right.
They added something that we noticed in there was they added not only finding the family members of the missing, and they're getting their FRS. That lady today also added in those of the resolved, 105, which tells me something interesting. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but just want to bring this up. When they say they want to also find the DNA, the FRS for the resolved, would that be because potentially they could find remains of someone they thought was originally resolved currently in the 85 unknowns that are up on the, in the Pacific Cemetery? Is there maybe some, hesitancy because we could turn up errors, 1947 errors, but could we potentially turn up the fact that maybe a family member was brought home, buried, identified, and it could be the wrong person?
Right. Yeah. And we already have an example of that with Manuel Badia, who was buried in the Punch Bowl. He was in Arizona, died on the Arizona, buried there. His sister did not think that was actually him, and she pushed to get him exhumed and found out it was not him. So, and this was many years ago, prior to DNA technology even. So they know that there are errors. And I mean, of course, they did the best they could at that time. So many casualties, and we all know that they did the best that they could. And I don't think we can fault them for what took place at that time. But we have to recognize that there are errors made. And the fact that they're acknowledging that in a roundabout way, I think that does say something, that they want to make sure if they proceed with any other project that they get it right for all family members.
Righting a wrong isn't necessarily a bad thing, Right. The family member asked 2 questions after that, but they were kind of more technical questions. That was really the one I wanted to share with you. The experiences that you had with the Oklahoma Sheri, and now the experiences you're having and noticing with our Arizona project. If you notice in the video, the deputy director mentioned how hard the family members are working and banding together, and Operation 85 is getting that FRS in. Well, I guess my question to you is, should we really be doing it? I didn't expect that this would take up now almost an entire year of my life. I told my wife this was going to take 3 months, and I was going to bring this, this mishap, this thing they didn't notice. They was going to bring this to the surface, and our great government was going to jump in and say, yes, we can't believe. And that hasn't happened. I'm fighting bureaucracy. I'm fighting politics. I'm fighting all kinds of things. I thought I would, but I'm realizing, I was right, and it's difficult. Should we be the ones funding, working, doing this? And how do you feel about the fact that, family members are paying for this? Family members are doing this. Should we be doing it? And at what point do you think the DPAA and the government should step in?
No, I mean, should family members be paying for it themselves? No, I mean, definitely not. The volunteer work and everything that's been done, that I think doesn't hurt that family members are doing it to get the ball rolling as you have. I'm surprised that it's taken this long for them to acknowledge what you've done and make a decision to move forward with it. But there is that bureaucracy, and I have to be careful because I have respect for DPAA. They did wonderful things for our family, and so I understand what they're under too. I do recognize that, and there are many people with DPAA that have done wonderful things, and I think some of them would appreciate this moving forward as well. So I don't think it's across the board everyone with that organization that's fighting this.
I will agree with you there, and it's the workers, the scientists, the people that are on the ground in these labs. They're the ones, if I bump into them or I meet them or I get a quick email, they're saying, keep it up. You're making this happen, and they want to do this. It's their job. They signed up and joined this agency. They want to identify these Americans. They want to do the work, and even as I say the bureaucracy falls at Mr. McCaig, the DPA director, the more I've gotten involved in this, he has people above him in the Department of Defense who make decisions and tell him what to do. So, I've said this before on other interviews that I think if me and Mr. McKeague were sitting in a bar drinking a beer and talking, freely, which we've never done, but if we were able to do that, I really think he would be supportive of what I'm doing too. But in his position and at his level, he has to play the political game. And me being here right outside, living outside of DC, I understand that. And he's playing the political game. The things that I have asked Sheri, and what really kind of upsets me the most is I've just asked for the DPAA to provide their powerful outreach and awareness to help me connect with these families. I haven't said, give me money. I've said, you have a arm of marketing and media presence. You could pick up the phone and have us on CBS News and one phone call and say, this is what this family organization is doing. And if you're related to a U.S.S. Arizona crew member, we need you to contact us. And that would have helped us, I think, got to that number much sooner and much larger, whereas we're doing it one at a time, doing genealogy research, finding out who's living, then trying to find out their phone number. We're doing a lot of work on our end. What upsets me, or disappoints me, I should say, the most is the DPAA won't even acknowledge publicly that we're doing this and help us at least with the outreach. Do you think there is some ego there? Do you think, why would they be so hesitant to say, help these family members out? Let's help identify these Arizona guys. If they claim to be equitable across all missing servicemen, if we're doing all the hard work, why do you feel there's still hesitancy there?
I don't know if it's ego so much as just the magnitude of the project. And there probably is things that we don't know about what will need to take place for all of this to move forward. I don't know if we can completely compare it to the Oklahoma project. So there might be something of that in there as well. And just to get the support from, like you say, people up above him, to say, yes, go ahead and publicly say that we acknowledge this group exists. We're going to help them out. If they get this number, we will commit to moving forward. So I don't know.
One of the family members said, referencing the Saturday meeting, the video we just played, they said, well, Kevin, they mentioned you guys. They mentioned Operation 85 in the answer. And I was like, well, there was 6 or 8 family members from Operation 85 sitting right in front of them. I said, they kind of had to. I would appreciate a little more support, just with the outreach and awareness, some social media posts, something on the website. We have sometimes family members, obviously you get a cold phone call from us. They want to make sure before they give information that we're the real deal. And they go to the DPAA website, and there's no mention of not only Operation 85, but no mention of collecting FRS from U.S.S. Arizona family members, because in their world, it's not considered a working priority. It's not a project they're working on. So because of that, they won't even mention it on the website. And I think that's very disappointing. Sheri, we're about to run out of time. I know you only had so much time. I really appreciate this. The last question is, why is Operation 85 kind of important to you? Why is it important to your family? What are your feelings on this? And what do you think is going to happen here in the future? And just kind of give us your take on that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to us because we just went through it. We know that the possibility is there. We had that closure. And I know that's a strange word to use in a situation where none of us now, most people living do not know these men, did not know them directly. But there is family closure in the fact that they've done it with the Oklahoma. We were able to have that burial. Now there's these men buried as unknowns for the Arizona. And I think it's important that they move forward with that as well, because they're able to. The technology is there, and I think that they should. The best story I've heard with all this, though, is not from my family, but from when I was helping you find families initially. A woman whose husband died on the Arizona, she went on to remarry and have kids. She chose to have her remains when she passed away, her ashes scattered at the U.S.S. Arizona Memorial so she could be with her first husband in his final resting place. And it dawned on me, she is probably one of many family members that have chosen to do that. What if that is not actually his final resting place? What if he's actually buried 10 miles away?
Right.
And that story for me has thing more importantly for finding closure for everyone's family. And also it's getting the word out there about, Pearl Harbor is always going to be important, but as generations go, I think people will start to forget. And I know you're doing this with your kids. I'm trying to do it with my kids to keep these men alive. They weren't just names on a memorial. They were actual human beings, and they deserve the honor and respect.
Agreed. Thank you, Sheri. Thank you, Sheri Spomer, for coming on the show, for telling us your perspective. I think family members will really enjoy this. I think we just have to continue to fight the good fight, and there's no stopping us. My just so you know, my wife has realized it's not going to take just 3 months, and I'm sure she wants me back to work very soon, but she's gracious enough to allow me to keep fighting this good fight, and something we really do every day. And I think this is also a great platform to just get these stories out so other family members can share their experiences and learn from your experiences as well. Sheri Spomer, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being a part of Operation 85. Thank you for all the help you've done the last year, connecting with family members and fighting the good fight with us. And I think, Operation 85, sometimes people think that was named for the 85 guys, but I actually named it Operation 85 because I wanted to have a resolution before the 85th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, which is 2026. So we've got 2 more years, and I think that's enough time to really to reach our numbers and get the DPAA to step up to the game and do what's right. Sheri Spomer, thanks again for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
You're anytime. Take care.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We, again, appreciate it. Please remember to share, like, subscribe this thing and get the word out for us. You can reach us again. USSArizona.Navy is our website. You can go there and find all kinds of information. If you want to support Operation 85, you have a gift shop online. We can buy some hats and T-shirts and cool stuff, and all the proceeds to that go to support Operation 85. Also, don't forget to support our wonderful sponsor, List with Elizabeth. Oh, there's Sheri again. Hi, Sheri. She's still there. And we'll see you on the next one. Next episode should be about the numbers, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again for joining us.
Yep. Thank you, Kevin.